everybody. Welcome to What's Growing On. I'm Jayne Spooner. I'm a University of Minnesota Master Gardener here in Rice County. And today I'm joined by my camera guy finally, Troy. And we're gonna do a little videotaping here in my backyard. So maybe at the end, Troy can kind of do a sweep through and kind of show you what I've got going on in my backyard, or what's growing on in my backyard, I should say. So today's episode, we're gonna do a little myth busting. I don't know if any of you remember the TV show Mythbusters, where they were probably doing a little bit more dangerous things than I'm willing or capable of doing. So I'm gonna do some garden myth busting. And when I restarted my garden program there, I don't know if you remember the episode where I had Ann Sawyer from the University of Minnesota. She's a soil scientist, and we talked a little bit about adding unusual things to your soil when you're planting things. So we're going to focus on two different things today. We're going to talk about adding Epsom salts to green peppers or peppers, and eggshells to tomatoes. And so we're going to do a little bit of experiment here. And I know it's a little bit later in the season to really be doing this, but I've got some bigger, healthier plants, so they should probably take off fairly well. And so what we're going to do is I've set up some containers. I've got a control container where I'm just going to use a regular fertilizer with a tomato and a pepper, and then I'm going to do the Epsom salt and the eggshells with the other. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about planting today and just kind of the reasoning behind it. So basically, the first one we're going to start with is we're going to start with tomatoes. Now, there are some gardeners, and first of all, let me put this disclaimer out. I know y'all have your own methods of doing things, and I'm not doing this to sway you in how you do it. It's kind of like the old story of the newlywed who used to cut the end of a ham off, and her husband asked her why she did it. And she says, well, I don't know, my mother always did it. So they called her mother, and why did you do it? I don't know, because my mother do it. So they called Grandma and said, Grandma, why do you always cut the end of a ham off when you cook it? Well, so it would fit in the pan. So there was really no reason behind it, but it was something that Grandma did. So we all learn different things as we go along, and I probably do things a little different than the ordinary average person, but I'm going with based on a lot of stuff that I learned through the University of Minnesota Extension website and then through the Master Gardener program. So this is just kind of a fun thing to do, and if this is something you do and it works for you, great, go for it. You know, that's cool. So I'm not trying to dissuade you in anything. So we're going to start a little bit now about tomatoes. Now I've got a couple tomato plants here. These are Champion tomato plants. They're a indeterminate variety, and what indeterminate means is the fact that they continue to grow and grow and grow and produce. There's also a determinate variety, which is kind of like your Roma tomatoes, your San Marzanos, your Amish pastes, and those are ones that are called determinate, and that's because they set their flowers and they set their fruit all at one time, and that's basically because you're probably using those for more sauces and those kinds of things to can and put up, whereas indeterminate, you're actually using those to eat throughout the season. So I've got these two Champion tomatoes, and I've set these up into container gardens, and so that I can monitor them a little bit because I don't have any room in my vegetable garden. So as you can see, I've got containers. These plastic terracotta looking ones are going to be for my peppers, and these white ones here are just old buckets that from Costco soap that we buy to do our laundry with. And so much like anything else, I have taken and I've drilled holes in the bottom, and I'm going to line it so that the soil doesn't run out when I water it. So I've got one partially started here, so we'll start with this one. So with the tomato, so you can see I just added some garden soil that I bought at the store, and it was specifically for raised vegetable beds. So I didn't have it soil tested, so we're just going to kind of go with what's there in it, but hopefully it'll do its job. And if you notice, when I normally show container gardening to you, I show you about taking the old containers and stacking them upside down to raise your soil level. Well, with vegetables, you don't want that, especially with tomatoes, because they have a deep root system and they need all that room to grow. And so that's why it's really important to get those big drainage holes on the bottom so that it stays well drained. So, and another thing with tomatoes, and I'm going to kind of show you how to plant if you haven't already done it, is tomatoes like to be planted really deep. So we're going to snip off some of these sides, and we're going to dig it, we're going to bury it really deep, because there's these tiny little hairs that are on the side of a tomato, and that actually will create roots, and it will send out a root system, and it will make the stalk really tall and sturdy, and so it doesn't tip over and ruin your tomatoes. Now with tomatoes, the myth that we're going to bust on it is the fact that this is going to be the control. I'm just going to put in a regular time-release fertilizer. This is just made for tomatoes and vegetables, and we're going to mix that into the soil. And in the other bucket, we're going to mix in crushed eggshells. So Sunday morning breakfast, I took the eggs, washed the shells out, let them dry off a little bit. Took my cocktail muddler and just kind of crushed them up, or you can use a mortar and pestle, or you can put them in a bag and use a rolling pin. So basically, it's just kind of finely ground in there. So, and the reason people use eggshells in with their tomatoes is they think it releases calcium. And the calcium, if there's a calcium deficiency in your soil with your tomatoes, that will cause what's called blossom end rot. And this is what blossom end rot looks like. So right here is where the blossom was, and because of this calcium deficiency or some other deficiency or wrong watering, if you're watering at night and leaving it wet, there's a lot of different reasons, it will rot out like that and you won't get a tomato, and it really looks kind of yucky. So you kind of want to deter from that. So with this one, I am going to take this tomato out. I'm going to just snip these off. I thought I had a pair of scissors here, but I can't find out where they're at, but that's okay. So I'm just taking these side leaves off. And I'm going to bury this guy kind of deep. Before I do that, I should remember to put in my fertilizer and just mix it good into the soil. And this is a time-release fertilizer, but as we always talk about time-release fertilizers, because we water so much in our containers, it really doesn't last the 3 months that they say it does. So you're going to want to supplement it along the season, say maybe in about 6 weeks. Okay, the bag is a little easier to handle now. Sort of. Then we're just going to kind of mix it in and around there. And then I'm going to water it in. And in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to stick kind of a bamboo pole right along here, and I'm going to kind of attach it to that. That way it doesn't flop over, so it gives it a little bit more strength. And you really don't want your tomatoes to fall off and into the soil, because that will kind of rot them too. So it's a way to kind of keep them up sturdy and get that air through them, because they like air circulation. They like to stay dry. That's why they say you always should water your vegetable gardens in the morning so that it dries off, because in the evening they stay damp. If it's cool, your plants stay wet, and that's when foliar diseases can take place. So this is going to be my control. I'm just going to mark that in there. Put a little bit of this on top just so I know that this is the one, and I'll put some markers in there. So I'm going to set this guy off to the side. So now we've got bucket number 2. Again, we're going to bury this guy deep. Start out with about the same amount of soil. But now in this one, I'm going to take these eggshells and I'm going to mix it in to the soil here. And supposedly, according to what they say, is that calcium will be released in the soil and help your plant grow a little bit better and avoid the blossom end rot. They also say it could make a bigger fruit. I don't know. We're going to try that and see how it goes. And again, I'm taking off these side suckers. Place that right down there. And now we got to get another bag of soil. With all the gardening I've done this year, I've canceled my gym membership. So, it's been kind of fun.
There we go.
And again, just continue to put that around there. And again, I will take and stake this up just as well. Keep continuing to, and as this grows, you're going to start to see little suckers like this that come out on the tomato. You can actually cut those off, and that helps develop the root system a little bit better, because those suckers really aren't fruit producing. They are just leaves with the growth, and so by taking those off, you just get more energy into the root system so that you get a taller, sturdier tomato, because they're really kind of sucking up all those nutrients there. So there you go. That's going to be, I'm going to leave these little eggshells here to know that this is the one with my eggshell. So, and then throughout the season, like once every 6 weeks, if you want to take some eggshells and mix it in to the top of the soil again, you can. So you can do that too. Okay. So those are tomatoes. Put these guys to the side. Now we're going to talk peppers. Purchased a couple of just regular green peppers. I'm not a huge green pepper fan, but I wanted to try it with this. I'll have somebody taste them, but people will swear that by adding Epsom salts, which is basically a form of magnesium, and this is just Epsom salts that I bought at the drugstore. And what Epsom salts will do is people will use it in their bathtub to kind of soothe away aches and pains. And I've been using a lot of this lately with all the gardening that I've done. But they mix it in and it supposedly adds magnesium to the soil. Now the thought behind that too is if you have good soil in your yard, especially in Minnesota, according to what Ann said, is that we do have magnesium in the soil. So if your soil is tested, unless it shows a magnesium deficiency, you really don't need it. But there are some people that really swear that these give you bigger, stronger, more robust plants, even to the point that people will, like every 4 to 6 weeks, will take 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt, dissolve it in a gallon of water, and spray their plants, because they swear that it makes those plants bigger, the fruit bigger, and the fruit also sweeter. So, who knew? So, we'll try that as well. So now with peppers, when you plant them, they really don't like to be planted as deep as your tomatoes. So these are just a couple of garden pots. Again, I've already filled those up. They have drainage holes on the bottom. And with this one, I'm going to mix in just some regular time-release fertilizer. Mix that in there really good. Now with peppers, when you're planting them, you don't want to plant them as deep as a tomato plant because there's really not the hairs there that was going to create the root system. So you really want to plant them as deep as they are in the pot, maybe just a little bit deeper. So just pop them out of there. I'm just going to dig a little hole in there. Kind of mound up the soil around it. And I too will take a stake, put that in there. Add a little more dirt to the pot so that it doesn't flop over as it gets growing with all the heavy fruit. Got that mixed in there so that I know that this is my control, the one with just a time-release fertilizer. And again, in about 4 to 6 weeks time, I will start doing some other Miracle Grow dissolved in water just to give it a boost. So we'll set this guy aside. And with this one, we're going to do the Epsom salt. Get this guy up here. Okay, get that out of there. So we're gonna dig down, mix about a little over a tablespoon in with the soil. And again, in about 4 to 6 weeks, you can top dress the Epsom salt into the top layer, which means just sprinkle it around and then just work up the soil. Take and mix 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water and spray it down. People will also use Epsom salts with tomatoes, but thinking that that's what causes blossom end rot, but that's not what it is. It's a calcium deficiency. So we can kind of and again, I'll put a stake in there, put a little Epsom salt here at the top so I know that this is the one that I'm trying to myth bust here. So along about September, when tomatoes and peppers start coming in, hopefully everything goes well, that the rabbits don't get into it and eat these plants. We'll probably do a little taste test here. So I'll get a volunteer to come in and do a blind taste test to see, and we'll kind of record what's been going on with the other 2 tomatoes as far as blossom end rot and how it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them over by the rest of my vegetable gardens. That way they get watered the same as everybody else. And we're going to kind of watch them for the next couple of months and see what happens. So I hope you found this a little fun to do a little myth busting. Again, we'll report back to you on it. It's been fun to be back outside and be out in the garden. I've had a lot of fun this spring and gardens have been fabulous, and it's great to hook up with Troy again, that I'm not sitting in my tiny little office recording on my computer. And just remember, just to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And I think we need to believe in a lot of tomorrows right now. So I wish you well, I wish you a happy summer and happy digging.